Chad Wolf now for some perspective on this. Chad is the former Secretary, Department of Homeland Security. As I mentioned, there are some new numbers I want to get into in just a moment. But first, maybe your general reaction to what Matt is reporting. As he said, it was another busy weekend along the border. What do you make of what you just saw?
Well, I think what those images and the numbers tell you is that it's more of the status quo along the border, unfortunately, that this administration continues to have has self-inflicted a crisis on the American people on that border, and they're doing very little to change the dynamics down there. 207,000 illegal apprehensions in 1 month alone is just astronomically high. This represents the sixth month in the Biden administration when we've been over 200,000 illegal apprehensions. You have to go all the way back to March of 2000 to find 1 month over 200,000. And so what it tells you is that their strategy is broken. But unfortunately, they're not changing tactics or course. And we're going to continue to see months like this and other months that we have had continuing to go unless they tried to actually enforce border security along that border.
To add to what you're saying, the fiscal year 2022 is now on pace to shatter the record from 2021 in total encounters, that number that you alluded to. But also when you dig a little bit deeper into it, we see an increase not only in terrorist sightings, I mentioned a moment ago, but certainly in unaccompanied children. Those numbers continue to go up. The illegal drug seizures, those numbers continue to go up. What would the tactical move be here? What would the change of course that you say is not going to happen be in the short term?
Well, it's actually enforcing the law. It's holding people accountable for choosing to break the law and to come across that border illegally. It's things like continuing construction along that border wall system. It's reinstituting the Remain in Mexico program, the asylum cooperative agreements, and there's a number of things that they can do that will disrupt the cartel's operations there, which is all they care about is making money. And if that means smuggling thousands of individuals across that border every single day, because every person that crosses that border is paying cartels somewhere between $5,000 and $10,000. You have to disrupt their business operations, and you have to do that with effective and smart policy decisions and operations. And the one thing that the cartels want is predictability. And the one thing that this administration has given them over the course of 17 months is that predictability. They have not done one thing different along that border, and that's why we continue to see these astronomically high numbers. Right. There are things that you can do. You have to make hard decisions, and you have to have some leadership to do it. And they're simply not choosing to do that. They're sticking their head in the ground and saying, well, I hope this goes away, and it's simply not going away. It will not go away on its own.
You know, we never hear anymore, hardly ever, in I guess a number of years, is any real discussion in Washington about a kind of an immigration bill or compromise on immigration. It used to be every few months you would hear something about that. Of course, you know, it would fall apart after that. But it seems like there would be something there. If you talk to people in the business community, big businesses, but also small business, talking to farmers about this a few months back, they will tell you they'd like to see more legal immigration. They like to get more talent, as they say, to come into the country. It seems there should be some sort of a deal here, increased border security, because we have a big worker shortage in this country, so that more legal immigration could happen. We never hear it, though, do we?
Well, I think that's right. I think there's a number of things that we could probably be talking about and find some common ground and solutions on. Unfortunately, I think, though, over the last 17 months, what has been abundantly clear is that you can't have those discussions if you continue to have a wide open border. And why do I say that? Why would you discuss H-2As and H-2Bs and all these other visas that allow individuals to come in, but you have to vet them to come in when the border is wide open, when those individuals don't have to go through that vetting program and can simply walk across the border and be released into the United States? And so you have to secure the border first and foremost. And then you can talk about the legal ways to bring in temporary workers and other parts of that labor force. But unless the left really wants to get serious and talk about how do we enforce border security along that border, as well as in the interior of the country, and remove individuals that don't have a legal right to be here, all the other stuff is just window dressing.
Right.
It's going to be very hard to find a compromise there.
No, Chad Wolf, former Secretary at Homeland Security. Thank you, sir. We appreciate it.